Welcome to Royal Secret. It wasn't just another royal photo op. It wasn't a simple wave, a casual step onto a boat, or a quiet moment away from palace walls. The Danish royal couple, King Frederik X and Queen Mary, stepped aboard the Royal Yacht Dannebrog with poise, power, and an unmistakable message. The monarchy is not only alive and well, it is evolving, moving, commanding attention on the high seas. But what made this moment different? Why did the sight of Queen Mary's wind-swept silhouette on the deck of that historic vessel spark headlines across Europe? And what deeper truth is hidden in the tradition of this royal departure? As the sun glinted off the polished brass of the Dannebrog and the national flag fluttered proudly behind them, it became clear, this wasn't just a routine voyage. It was the beginning of a new era. On a crisp May morning in Copenhagen, the scene at the harbor was almost cinematic. The sea was calm, the sky perfectly overcast to capture every striking detail on camera. But it was the yacht itself that stole the show first. Dannebrog, a floating symbol of royal heritage since 1932, gleamed like a jewel cutting through the mist. For nearly a century, it has carried Danish monarchs through joy and crisis, war and peace, coronations and farewells. And now, it carried Denmark's new royal couple, for the first time as king and queen. Crowds gathered along the waterfront, clutching flags and craning their necks as a quiet murmur swept through the air. Phones went up, eyes widened. Then they appeared. King Frederik, tall and solemn in a tailored navy blazer, stood beside Queen Mary, whose fashion choices once again proved she was more than just a consort. She was a modern icon of diplomacy, grace, and regality. Wearing a timeless white coat dress with understated accessories, Mary channeled both the Queen of Denmark and the daughter of Tasmania in one moment. They boarded the Dannebrog hand in hand, not just stepping into a vessel but into legacy. To understand the weight of this moment, you must understand the Dannebrog. Commissioned by King Christian X in 1931 and launched in 1932, the yacht has seen more than most palaces. It served not only as a maritime residence but also as a vessel of diplomacy, hosting foreign dignitaries, state visits, and summer voyages that double as subtle statecraft. For Queen Margrethe II, it was both a throne and a sanctuary. And now, with her abdication and the new reign of King Frederik X, the yacht carries more than royal passengers, it carries the torch of continuity. Even the yacht's name is no accident. Dannebrog refers to the Danish flag, a national symbol of pride that traces its origins back to the 13th century. Every railing, every knot in the polished wood, tells a story of Denmark's transformation, and now of its future under Frederik and Mary. So why did this moment captivate Europe? Because it wasn't random. The departure aboard the Dannebrog marks the couple's first ceremonial voyage since Frederik's ascension to the throne in January 2024. It's a royal tradition, but also a strategic move, showcasing the monarchy's presence beyond the castle gates. Royal observers were quick to note the timing. With recent public concerns over the future of European monarchies, this public show of unity, elegance, and history was no accident. It was a deliberate move to anchor the royal family in the hearts of the Danish people, quite literally. Moreover, it gave the world its first taste of how King Frederik X intends to lead, not just as a king, but as a modern statesman who honors tradition while gently steering toward relevance. And at his side, Queen Mary, the Australian-born royal who once faced skepticism, now looked every bit the seasoned monarch, radiant, composed, and deeply respected. This isn't the first time a royal couple has used the Dannebrog to make a point. King Frederik IX and Queen Ingrid often set sail to visit Greenland, the Faroe Islands, and remote corners of the Danish realm. These voyages were more than leisure, they were acts of inclusion, reminding the realm that the crown was not confined to Copenhagen. In 1963, a young Princess Margrethe took one of her first solo journeys on the yacht, symbolizing her readiness to one day reign. In 2004, newlywed Frederik and Mary embarked on a summer tour aboard the Dannebrog, a quiet but powerful nod to their shared path. And now, in 2025, the cycle continues. Their new journey isn't just about visiting the kingdom, it's about reclaiming royal presence, reminding citizens from Aarhus to Aalborg that the monarchy is still here. Still listening, still watching the waves. Danish tabloids exploded with coverage. The footage of Frederik and Mary aboard the yacht dominated TV headlines and social media reels for days. Comments poured in. many noting how Queen Mary's calm strength and King Frederik's gentle confidence reminded them of Queen Margrethe's early reign, a time when optimism ran high and tradition met renewal. Across the border, Swedish royal watchers praised the Danes for upholding elegance and continuity. In the UK, comparisons were drawn between the Dannebrog and Britain's now defunct Royal Yacht Britannia, with some calling for King Charles to follow Denmark's example in restoring maritime monarchy as a tool of soft power. In Australia, Mary's homeland, media outlets beamed with pride, running headlines like, "From Tasmania to the Throne, Queen Mary sails into history." The symbolism was unmistakable. This voyage was no ordinary cruise, it was a chapter in the evolution of monarchy. Sources close to the palace confirmed that the royal couple's itinerary includes stops in Greenland and the Faroe Islands, a powerful gesture of unity with all corners of the Danish realm. These visits are expected to highlight issues like climate change, indigenous heritage, and regional identity, all under the watchful eye of a monarchy adapting to new expectations. Additionally, unconfirmed reports suggest that Queen Mary will take on several solo engagements during the journey, continuing her focus on health, youth development, and women's rights, issues that have defined her reign so far. Behind the glitter and formality, the couple's schedule is packed. But what's even more packed is the symbolism they carry with them. This is just the beginning of our journey aboard the Dannebrog, and into the heart of modern Danish royalty. As the Dannebrog cut through the quiet waters of the Øresund Strait, carrying its regal passengers away from the polished ceremonial dock, it wasn't just embarking on a geographical journey. It was carrying with it the weight of history, the burden of expectation, and, perhaps most poignantly, the memories of a romance that once unfolded away from the cameras, away from royal protocol, and closer to the quiet rhythm of the sea. Because for Queen Mary, the sea has always been more than just a Danish tradition, it's been a personal sanctuary. And for King Frederik, a trained naval officer, it is home. Together, their shared bond with water has become one of the defining metaphors of their reign, fluid yet constant, traditional yet adventurous. Long before she ever set foot aboard the Royal Yacht Dannebrog, Mary Donaldson, an ordinary Australian woman, stood on the shores of Hobart, watching sailboats skim across the Derwent River. The sea was part of her childhood. It taught her calm, freedom, and reflection. She had no idea that the waves would one day carry her across the globe into a life of crowns, castles, and complicated protocol. And yet, in 2003, just months before their wedding, it was aboard this very yacht, the Dannebrog, that Mary and Frederik experienced one of their most private, intimate moments as an engaged couple. The press were held back. The cameras were few, but the images from that brief summer cruise said it all. Frederik was not just showing her a vessel. He was inviting her into a life on water, a life in motion, and a life of navigating not only oceans, but expectations. Unlike many of his European royal counterparts, King Frederik X wasn't groomed exclusively behind palace walls. In fact, some of his most defining years were spent under harsh training as a naval officer. He's commanded ships, navigated Arctic waters, and even participated in elite missions under Denmark's Frogman Corps. For him, the sea is not symbolic, it is real, visceral, earned. So when he walks the deck of the Dannebrog, he does so not as a ceremonial figure, but as someone who understands the tides, the knots, the protocols of maritime command. Observers who know the Danish king personally often comment on how the sea centers him, grounding his often restless spirit and allowing him to step away from the tightly scripted world of monarchy. The decision to make the Dannebrog a key stage for his first royal tour as king is not just traditional. It's personal. It tells Denmark, and the world, that this is a king who isn't afraid of depth. But while King Frederik commands respect on the deck, Queen Mary has quietly transformed the Dannebrog into a platform of purpose. Palace insiders have revealed that Mary will be using this voyage not merely for ceremonial duties, but to amplify her long-standing causes, mental health advocacy, women's empowerment, and climate awareness. Already, it's been announced that during the yacht's stop in Greenland, Queen Mary will visit coastal communities affected by rising sea levels, spotlighting a deeply personal concern for both her and her husband. Notably, Greenland's fragile Arctic coastlines have become a global flashpoint, and the fact that a queen is visiting those vulnerable villages in person is being read by many as a bold diplomatic signal. Queen Mary's team has also confirmed plans for closed-door discussions with Indigenous leaders, especially on youth suicide prevention and cultural preservation. It's clear, she isn't just standing on deck for the cameras. She's standing for something. While most royal palaces are grand, immovable fortresses built of stone, the Dannebrog is different. It moves. And that, perhaps, is what makes it so powerful. As a floating royal residence, the Dannebrog symbolizes a monarchy that can go to its people, not just summon them to the palace. It docks in fishing towns, islands, and coastal regions where the crown might otherwise feel distant. It brings regality to places that usually only hear about it in newspapers or watch it through a screen. For King Frederik and Queen Mary, this ability to meet the people where they are, to literally bring the crown into the harbor, is a cornerstone of their modern royal strategy. And yet, even with its elegance and history, the Dannebrog remains humble in its luxury. Built in the early 1930s, it has retained many of its original designs: polished wood interiors, antique brass fixtures, narrow staircases, and intimate lounges, making it feel less like a cruise ship and more like a beloved family heirloom. This balance of elegance and restraint perfectly mirrors Denmark's monarchy, modest but meaningful. While Britain's Royal Yacht Britannia now rests as a museum in Edinburgh, Denmark's Dannebrog is still very much active, and it's being used strategically. In recent years, analysts have called attention to how the yacht has been used for quiet diplomacy, particularly in Arctic affairs, EU discussions, and even cultural exports. With King Frederik and Queen Mary now aboard as sovereigns, this function is expected to expand. In fact, early drafts of this summer's itinerary suggest meetings with ambassadors, cultural figures, and scientists aboard the yacht itself, turning it into a kind of floating embassy. Sources in Copenhagen have confirmed that select international guests may even be invited for private lunches aboard the Dannebrog during its tour. This approach echoes Queen Margrethe's legacy, who once used the yacht to host sensitive meetings with foreign leaders in more relaxed settings than the stiff corridors of government buildings. Now, it's Frederik and Mary's turn to wield that same subtle power. It wouldn't be a royal voyage without a touch of fashion diplomacy. Queen Mary's first appearance on the yacht was an immediate triumph in the global press. Dressed in a crisp, ivory coat dress by Danish designer Lasse Spangenberg, paired with low heels and minimal jewelry, she struck the perfect balance between regal elegance and modern functionality. Her look was described by royal watchers as nautical minimalism with authority. Fashion experts were quick to point out that her outfit echoed the early 1950s style worn by Queen Ingrid, Frederik's grandmother, during her tours aboard the very same vessel. This deliberate echo of legacy is part of a broader campaign by the Danish royal house to reinforce heritage while subtly rebranding the monarchy as accessible, future-focused, and environmentally aware. Frederik, too, wore a navy double-breasted blazer, subtly nodding to his naval past, with a white shirt unbuttoned just enough to remind the world that he remains the people's king, grounded in reality, not pomp. The eyes of the world weren't just watching from Denmark. In Australia, Queen Mary's homeland, coverage of the royal voyage dominated headlines. News anchors spoke with pride and nostalgia, reflecting on how a woman from Tasmania had grown into one of the most influential royals on the planet. One headline from the Sydney Morning Herald read, "From beach to bridge, Mary of Denmark sails into a new era." In Greenland, anticipation is building ahead of the yacht's visit. For many Greenlanders, the Dannebrog's arrival is a rare event, both festive and deeply symbolic. With the island's growing calls for independence and political autonomy, Queen Mary's visit is expected to be deeply scrutinized. Her presence there is not just ceremonial, it's being viewed as an act of listening, of visibility. In an age where monarchies are often accused of being out of touch. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more upload.